Howdy, friends and floorheads. Happy Thursday night. It is time for a pool party, and it's the pool party you thought never would happen. It is the Arcanist pool party. So, for those of you not familiar with the pool parties, normally when you think about picking masters, you look at the pool and you say, which master in my faction would be the best master or keyword to bring to that pool? And we're going to kind of turn that on its head a little bit. So instead of trying to find the best master for the pool, what we're going to do is look at this master by master and find the best pool for the master, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but you'll see in a second that it is, because when we're done, we're going to get a sense of the type of coverage that Arcanist has. Now, I've made the argument for a long time that I think Arcanist is one of the most balanced, interbalanced uh, factions out there. I think that the gap between Mayfang and everybody else is not as wide as it is in other groups, right? You've got other factions where there's a big gap between the strongest and the weakest master, and I just don't think that's the case here. So a few things before we do some introductions. One, if you are not a subscriber, go ahead and hit like or subscribe. If you're on Twitch, hit that like heart for me. If you're watching this on YouTube, a little like and subscribe would be great. If you really want to do some supporting, you can actually sub here on Twitch as well. Also, don't forget about Tabletop Talk. For my Malifaux fans, that's where you're going to get the majority of your Malifaux content is on our podcast. All right, right above me is somebody who, if you've been following Third Floor Wars, you're familiar with. Roman has been on the podcast. He's been on the live streams. He's pretty much a regular here for Third Floor Wars. So, Roman, I appreciate you coming, man.
Happy to be here, Craig. Thanks for having me.
When I thought Arcanist, I thought you.
Oh.
It was an easy pick. And then we have a new face just below me. Below me is Cole. And Cole came highly recommended as somebody who knows what he's talking about. And that was confirmed by Roman. So, Cole, you've been vetted.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do. Let's start off easy. And we'll start with you, Roman. We're going to start off with Miss Ironsides. Now, we look at these pools. I've got a turf war pool, a ley lines pool, a symbols pool, and a break the line pool. And if you look at both the deployments, the strategies, and then the pools that I generated for each of these groups, they're very different. Each one has strengths, and let's see how they match up. So when you look at Tony, Roman, where do you think Tony best fits? So what is the best pool for Ironsides?
So I'm contractually obligated to say that Tony fits best everywhere because otherwise they won't let me back on Steam-Powered Scoundrels.
True.
For me personally, though, I have her down out of these pools in the flank symbols pool.
Interesting. Okay. And what's the thought process there?
So symbols, normally you don't think of Tony's team as going deep, but in flank, that's not much of a big deal. Research mission, they sneakily can do with the, I'm going to forget the name of the model now, the Steam Fitter.
Oh, okay.
They can do that sneakily pretty easily if nobody knows it's coming. Assassinate, good luck taking it on Tony, and she's one of the few models, one of the few masters where I actually like taking it because she can make it happen.
Yep.
As people are running across the center line to get to your symbol, she's going to go, bring it over here. I'm just going to pummel you because you tried to get over there. And claim jump, she and Hank are going to be in the middle of the table. Why would you want to go there?
Now, is there a particular strategy here that you think she counters well? You mentioned assassinate, but is there anything else where she's going to prevent you from scoring?
Again, symbols itself, she's going to go, oh no, your leaper, no, bring it over here. You're fighting me now. Again, claim jump just by she's in the middle. You don't want to be there. Good luck getting her out of there so you can score it.
And that's the thing about claim jump is you deny and score at the same time, which is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if anybody's trying to be cheeky and putting a tanky something in the middle to get the second point, she's probably going to take it out by the end of the game. Those are the big ones. And then
you're probably bringing gunsmiths, and they
also,
love shooting, spread them out off the board.
Yep.
Really
that would be, yep.
Steampunk Scoundrels just asked a question. Did Craig say anything about titles? I did not, and I should have, so I appreciate it, Doug. We're only talking about the originals, the OG masters here. We're not doing second titles this time. You can look forward to that. So we're going to get through all the pool parties for all the factions, and then we'll come back around and we'll do new titles. Cole and I were talking about that actually before we went live, and one of the things I told Cole is I like things to bake a little bit before we talk about them on our show, and I like people to really get their reps in. There's a ton of really great content creators out there that give fantastic quick analysis and hot takes. It's just not what we do here. So we're not going to be first, but hopefully it's worth waiting for. So that will be coming. All right, Mr. Cole, you look at
So
Tony Ironsides. Where did you find her going? So what is the best pool for Tony?
so I went with what I think is probably more what people are going to expect out of her, and that's turf war,
Yeah.
because her bread and butter is I am going to be a group in the middle. Good luck trying to shift me off it. So turf war kind of helps with that, and she doesn't love going to interact and pick them up, but she's not going to be giving away a lot of points to, picking off her models and flipping markers back. Um,
How did the schemes play into that decision, Cole? So the turf war is pretty obvious to me as well, but I'm
yeah.
curious how the schemes play into it.
So hidden martyrs, she's got some fairly useful lower cost models in, you pair a gunsmith with a union miner or something like that, and you kind of don't have a choice but to do something about them. The counter to that though is you got to be really careful because Ironsides likes to kill stuff. So
Yeah.
you it's kind of more against her, but not if you're careful. Let them bleed is really not a problem for her. She's going to pick your biggest, scariest thing and say, hey, come here anyway. So it kind of fits in with what she's planning to do just because you brought Ironsides. You might as well score some points while you're doing it. Spread them out. You've got Union Miners. You've got plenty of stuff out of Keyword that can help you with it. Bait and switch. She can say, hey, come here from 12 inches away and get you where
Yeah.
she needs you to be. And then, for the scheme marker, again, you've got steam fitters that can drop it, union miners that can drop it. Um, Catch and release, I probably wouldn't take with her without taking Arachnid Swarm or something out of keyword.
Yeah.
But Arcanist in general has really good options for that. So even if Ironsides doesn't, she's not out of the running.
So I'd be curious, Cole. You and I are playing each other. You declare Arcanist. This is the pool. You pick Tony. What scheme or two schemes would you prefer I didn't take? So, of all of these schemes, which ones do you think she would have the hardest time preventing me from scoring?
She's probably going to have a tough time preventing the first point for catch and release because you can pretty well guess where she's going to be. And
Right.
man, she has a lot of good henchmen that you really want to bring. So the second point, once you've declared that, however, there's a good chance that whatever came into the middle is going to die, but
Right.
it's almost a guaranteed point against her. And then she's good at denying spread them out, but if my gunsmiths are shooting ski markers instead of models, you're kind of coming out on top on that.
Yeah, and if I'm forcing that decision, right? If I'm forcing you to make that choice between the markers or not. Hey, McBluff, thanks for the cheers, man. That's exactly right. All right. So, Cole, he was OP in M2E. He's back under control here. The initial
Hmm.
hot takes on him is that he was terrible. And then, just like before, people are like, oh, yeah, actually, Sandeep is pretty good. So,
Hmm.
of these four pools, where do you think Sandeep would feel the best? Where is the warmest water for Sandeep?
So Sandeep is definitely, even after the errata, still a pretty good master, and he's a pretty generalist. So there's not a lot of situations you can put him in where he doesn't have an option. His keyword is huge. He's got summons. He's got options. I think he's going to do best in the flank symbols, um,
Interesting.
because Windgammon are some of the best symbols runners in the faction. Other people are hiring them anyway. He gets to just hire them at cost. Now, if you summon them, you can't go get the symbol with them, but they're still really good 6 stone models in their own right.
Yeah.
Um, Research mission with all the different markers you can create is really not a problem. Um, Assassinate is one of the things that is kind of against him because he's not terribly difficult to kill. You got to be really careful for that. But claim jump, you've got golems accessible. You've got hardy minions that they're not going to be expecting. Spread them out. Again, you've got Windgammon. You've got all the other things that are just Arcanist generic that you can take that can slot in pretty easy. And his crew is, you know, deceptively mobile just looking at their cards because of all the mantras and the demises that you get off the Windgammon. So going to get symbols is not a problem for him.
So I'd be curious, Cole, you take Sandeep into this. You get a guess that I'm definitely going to take Assassinate, right? Based off of my crew, and you look at that pool and you know that he is vulnerable to that scheme. What are you going to do on the table to really help prevent that? How can you still allow Sandeep to impact the game while preventing me from scoring Assassinate?
That's one of those times where you probably bring a couple more stones than maybe you would need to. Like, so in your hiring, try to bake in some protection for him. And, a common thing is turn one, Banasuva throws Sandeep 10 inches up the board, so he never has to move again. Maybe you don't do that if you're playing against something that can really get in his face turn one, turn two. Just play a little more cagey with him and try to figure out, okay, if they're going to assassinate me, what model are they using to do it? And then you just throw your summons into that model and make them deal with that first.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Win the war of attrition.
And win the war of attrition, exactly. Because, keeping in mind, if he scores 3 points, but allows the 2 points for Assassinate, you've come out ahead, right?
Right.
And that's something to also keep in mind. I've seen people overplay preventing things like Assassinate. They end up costing themselves points as a result, where they're better off saying, look, I'm going to score 3-4 points with my master, and you're going to go ahead and kill him. And I'm netting a positive there. Roman, where do you put the Sandeep?
Exactly the same place.
Yeah. And where do you agree? And did you have any other additional thoughts?
I agree. This is a pool he honestly can sleep through. Like even the ones he doesn't want to take, like bait and switch is a little harder. But again, you have Banasuva with toss. You say, oh, you've already activated. I'm going to run up, toss you, and now I get points.
Yep.
And you can do that obeying Banasuva out of activation, so you can be real tricky with it.
Exactly. The Assassinate was, I had the same will they, won't they thought there as well, but it came down to get to Sandeep, you have to get through everything else.
Right.
And whenever he uses his ability that lets him do ranged actions through his friends, he doesn't need to be up far unless he needs to be within 6 inches of his friends for his mantra. That's it.
Yep. All right. Rasputina. Where does the queen and her ice pillars go?
Who's first?
Roman, I'm sorry.
All right. So this one, I have seen Rasputina on the table and played her more than a lot of people on the internet think is worth it, because our other friend Rob is in my meta and plays her a lot.
Yep.
In very good ways. But I went back and forth on this one and eventually settled on the Leyline's Corner.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah. So let's talk through that from a strategy standpoint. Why is Leylines good for her?
Well, and this was the reason I went back and forth on it primarily, because Corrupted Leylines is one of the strats where I will go, I can bring any one of 3 or 4 versatiles and get this done. I don't care what keyword it's in. But Rasputina, because of how Ice Mirror works, and within is range, she and her silent ones can pass the football much, much further than everybody, because they can do it through an ice pillar.
Right.
So this turn 1 looks like Snowstorm says, everybody move up. Whoever starts with the football is a silent one. They're going to be at a corner or at one of the ley lines. They're going to sit there and put out ice pillars wherever they need at that turn. Next turn, they're not moving. They're throwing the football, or the ice ball, as it were, and they're going through an ice pillar, and 6 inches from that to whoever's there to go to one of the corners, probably.
So interesting comment from Doug. He says, Raspy is so damn dependent on the amicable board. What type of board would prevent you from bringing her into ley lines and maybe steer you in another direction?
One that does not have choke points is the easy answer, but
Right.
that was the other thing that brought me towards this one. Is everybody thinks the Raspy crew is slow, but because of the out of activation pushes from Snowstorm, and a few other little tricks like that, they're surprisingly fast. They will get where they're going to go turn one, but you're still coming up the corner of the board towards them, and they have more time to get out their ice pillars and artificially create choke points if there aren't as many as, say, on a standard or a flank.
And that's kind of the double-edged sword a little bit, right? Is, choke points help and hurt. And it really comes down to how you play it.
Mhm.
And what your opponent brings, right? Which master are you going to see on the other side of the table? Where did the Ice Queen fall for you, Cole? So when you looked at all four of these pools, where does she find herself happiest?
So yeah, the Leyland's Corner was a close second for me, but I also put her in the same flank symbols pool. I actually really like Raspy and Symbols because I think more so than any master, at least an Arcanist and a lot of masters, period, she can deny it so well.
Right.
Mhm.
Being able to put ice pillars next to the symbols and create a situation where that scheme runner needs to spend probably, an action to break the ice pillar, an action to move, and then an action to pick it up. Plus, you're making them slow. Plus, you're stopping them from getting across the board effectively. She may not score symbols as well as some other crews, but she denies it better than I think anyone in the game.
Yeah, yeah. Now, so that makes sense to me, Cole. But from a scheme standpoint, I'd like to know what you think are her strongest schemes in this pool, and which ones she would struggle the most
Yeah.
with.
Research mission is almost free points
Yeah,
with her. Especially it in flank symbols. You gotta, and with Raspy being as card hungry, there's a good chance you're bringing the Mech Rider anyway. So you can make another scrap or corpse for research mission for that third one if you don't want to count on your opponent or standing next to a symbol. Um, Bait and switch is definitely a weak one for her because she doesn't have a lot of offensive movement stuff. And if your opponent takes it on something like the Golem or the Blessed, there's not a lot you can do about it. They need to go across the center line to be effective. So you're gonna kind of give up some points there, maybe. Assassinate, she can do it. I mean, the Golem hits like a truck if you can get him
right.
where he needs to go. And Raspy is very difficult to kill if you don't have specific tech to do it. If you didn't bring a bunch of blow it to hells or anything like that, you're not killing her.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Claim jump, again, the Golem. He sits there with a 4-inch hazardous blizzard. If you want to come deny claim jump, be my guest because you're going to take a lot of damage to do it. And then spread them out. The crew that you're going to build to do symbols in Raspy is already kind of positioned to do spread them out. So that's a decent one for her to take. It becomes a little AP intensive, but you're already in the right spot for it.
And you probably have an AP advantage, right? You're probably in a
Oh yeah,
situation where you've really hurt the efficiency of your opponent. So you being a little slower, you're still not going to be as slow as they probably are.
right. I
So
mean
that
that's the
makes
idea.
right, exactly. All right, now Miss Mei Fang, Cole, when you look at Mei Fang, and again, Mei Fang may never be the best master for any of these pools, but there's a better pool for Mei Fang. So
Hmm.
where would she be happiest?
So I do have to caveat this with I have played very little Mayfang this edition, or actually, I didn't play her at all in second. So this isn't one I'm super confident on, but I think she's good in the Turf War pool.
Okay.
Kind of for the same reasons that Ironsides is. She's as killy. She's not as durable, but I mean, you've got some armor too in the crew. You can stand in the middle and not die. But Turf War, she can kind of go the other route where if she can set up her scrap network, she can go manually take markers back by just having movement efficiency and moving kind of around the edges. And I mean, Mayfang, the rail golem or metal golem, they can kill stuff. They can flip those markers pretty easy. Um,
Do you think that there's any schemes that play well into that, Cole?
yeah, so let them bleed again for the same reasons. Let them bleed, spread them out. It's kind of already rewarding what you want to do. You want to kill stuff. You want to be kind of spread out and kind of play it deep. You're already in the right spot for spread them out. Um, Again, bait and switch is kind of a liability because your opponent can really count on you getting into their territory quick, but you're so fast, maybe they can't catch you. Is kind of your best bet.
Right.
And denying the second part of bait and switch against Mayfang is pretty difficult because it's what 7 stones in their deployment zone to deny it. That's not terribly difficult to do.
Mhm.
Catch
How
and
about
release, she's also pretty good at.
yeah, yeah. How about for you, Roman? Where did you end up thinking Mei Fang would do the best?
This was another one I went back and forth on because my experience with her has been she looks really good for killy stuff, but whenever you declare Arcanist, you know someone's going to bring anti-armor.
Good point.
And that is what her crew lives on. So I actually have found I enjoy her more if I don't bring her into a super obviously killy pool. So I once again went with the corrupted ley lines.
Interesting. And what tipped that? So what made you consider it, and then what put you over the top?
Again, the fact that it's corner, and with Ride the Rails, you're taking usually turn one, maybe the first half of turn two, while you're doing other things to set up your rail lines, as it were. In corner, you're taking that time to do that anyway, and it's paying dividends over the whole game, especially with as spread out as this pool gets. Whereas I don't know of another crew offhand except maybe Zip who will match her for spread out ability,
Right.
which is a word now. But yeah, Deathbeds is free points for her, especially the second one. The first point she has to work at a little bit, but oh no, you have Punchy Combo Master punching people for points. Okay. Spread them out again, rail lines. You have that done really easily. Assassinate, she can potentially do if you get the right hand for it. And if people try it on her, you should be able to stand a turn and then ride the rails out.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. All right, Roman, let's talk about Mr. Marcus, the professor. Where do we think Marcus does the best? So if he has to pick one pool, which pool is he playing in?
Turf War, no contest.
Interesting. And why was that no contest?
Because his crew is, again, it is its own different tricky style of moving quickly. And in this kind of table that, depending on terrain, of course, they can kind of redeploy and just go, I have my whole, or not even my whole crew, but I have 20 to 30 stones of models here. Now they're over here and they're facing 10 stones of yours. Your 10 stones are gone.
Yep.
Now, in this pool, that does mean he's probably giving up the first point for Hidden Martyrs. But he can do Let Them Bleed, which is a scheme I'm not a huge fan of. So to say he can confidently do that is really big coming from me. You have leaps and flying things and making all of them faster and out of activation movement. So spread them out. He kind of sleeps through. Bait and switch. You have Kojo to do, once again, toss people where you want them. And catch and release, again, you have leaping, flying things.
You have Cerberus.
Yeah, you have Cerberus.
So I'd be curious. Let's say I watched you play Marcus into this pool, right? And after it was done, someone walks up to me and says, "Hey, Craig, which upgrades did Roman use the most that game?" What do you think the answer would be?
It's going to depend on the model, because I actually go through a decent number of them when I play. But definitely the wings, the camouflage, the armored one that armored plates, that's what it's called. I can never remember the name of it when I first go for it. Those are probably the three that get cycled the most. And then when it's time for something to die, I go to the serrated teeth.
Got it. Mr. Cole, where did you end up finding Marcus?
Exact same spot.
Yeah.
That's really just a Marcus pool.
It is. Anything that you can add to what Roman said? Is there or maybe something that we really need to reinforce?
Really just reinforcing the adaptability to Marcus to quickly get, his core group somewhere that they weren't a second ago. And like you said, chasing down, picking your targets, picking your engagements, and picking fights you have an advantage on. His crew is fast enough to do that. And if you can't pick those engagements, they'll definitely die. I mean, they're not super squishy, but they were all designed knowing that they could have armored plates and camouflage. And so if you don't have the upgrades, you start to see the cracks in their armor very quickly. But, getting hidden martyrs is always I don't like taking that scheme because it depends more on your opponent making decisions than you making decisions, and just like conceptually I don't like to play that way. But let them bleed, I mean, he's probably doing it anyway, you might as well get points for it.
Right.
Spread them out, I mean, it's not a hard one for models that fast to do, and catch and release, you have some of the scariest minions in the faction to pull that off.
Yep. Yep. All right. So there's only one master that I have actually played in the Arcanist faction, and that is Miss Karis. I took her to the table and lost like a pitiful bastard. So, Cole, when we look at the Fire Queen, where do you think Karis flies off to and ends up?
So this one was really difficult for me because I
Yeah.
am a die-hard Karis player. I think all the tournaments I've done in 3rd edition, there's maybe 2 or 3 rounds I haven't played Karis in. So she is my go-to, doesn't matter what the situation is most of the
That's
time.
awesome.
If these 4 pools were just 4 rounds in a tournament, I would have no problem soloing Karis. She can really do any of these. I think my favorite one, I ended up narrowly on the corner ley lines.
Interesting.
And I'm going to get some flack for this one, I think, but it'll make sense when I explain it. Corner, her crew is fast enough. She doesn't care. She loves stuff like Wedge because she can just start beating your face in like the second activation. But corner isn't a deterrent for her. It's not going to slow her down enough to throw off her game plan. And ley lines is a scheme or is a strategy that changes what you think about mobility wise. Like leaping models are not good in ley lines because they can't place. So a lot of flight, a lot of leap, stuff like that isn't good. There's a lot of models I take with her that just have a walk as a bonus or a move as a bonus that isn't a place. So she can get to those farther away, the other corner of you ley line markers pretty efficiently. And then for the schemes, corner breakthrough is always a little iffy, but she can absolutely do it with Firestarter and Carlos and Arachnid Swarms. Like she's fast enough. Assassinate, it changes how you play Karis a little bit, but you can, against most masters, take theirs out. You stack injured 4 or 5 on them and just go to town. Deathbeds is the closest thing to free points you're ever going to really see in a Karis crew. Spread them out. Again, it's AP intensive as a scheme generally, but you can definitely do it. Outflank is the only one that I don't think I would take with her because committing models to those corners in a diagonal deployment is rough.
Yeah.
But she, Iggy, and the Golem can all remove scheme markers from range, so she denies it very well as spread them out and break through because they can be standing on the center and deny that scheme almost anywhere on the board.
So I wonder, Cole, I mean, of all the Arcanist Masters, how did you end up falling in love with her? So what was it about Karis that just made her, your bae?
Step 1, she wasn't Sandeep because I was so sick of playing Sandeep 2nd edition. So that was the first thing.
Yeah.
And really it was just I didn't play her, like I beta tested 3rd edition a lot, and I didn't play her throughout the beta because in 2nd, she just really didn't click with me. In 2nd, I didn't like her play style at all. Finally decided to give her a shot in 3rd edition, and just the way that she can adapt to the situation, I never feel like there's a pool where I'm really playing from behind. And usually if I switch away from her, it wasn't the pool, it was my matchup. She is more dependent on who I'm playing against than what I'm trying to do.
Who do you not like to see then? Who can get you off of her?
If someone declares Neverborn, I'm probably going to at least think about someone else because, man, Iggy is a nightmare. If on the off chance they play Pandora, that whole matchup just sucks.
Yeah.
Playing against Nekama sucks. Like, there's a lot of tech that is just kind of in Neverborn that I don't like dealing with. So if it was close, I'll play someone else. I'll just swap to Sandeep or Hoffman or something to just have an easier matchup.
Yep. Mr. Roman, do you love Karis as much as Cole?
Not as much as Cole, but she's about 2nd on my list. And you know who the first one is. But Yeah, very much. I looked at these pools. I'm like, so Karis can take all of these. Let me get out like a cork board and some string to figure out exactly which one is best for her. Um, I considered ley lines for a long minute for a lot of the same reasons Cole did. I ended up, however, going with the turf war. And that is because she can kill, she's fast, she can, in a lot of ways, do a lot of the same stuff the Marcus crew does, just with different models.
Right.
And also a little more board control due to the pyres. But I find a lot of her versatility comes from the fact that I can more easily with her kind of go, I need 4 or 5 models for my burning core, and that will work. And then everything else can just be fill it up with, the emissary. Honestly, not that often. But like steam arachnid swarms, the occasional soulstone miner, they all do work.
Yep.
And the swarms can keep up with her and the fire starter and Carlos, which is a big wait, what?
Well, and so I take the arachnid swarms almost every game with her. People say, "Oh, they got nerfed. They're terrible." They're not. But let me put that to bed right now. They are not terrible. They are still
No.
good models.
They're fantastic.
They have particular synergies with Karis because all that injured from the pyro markers.
Mm.
Now they're latching on, putting you -1 defense. I mean, you can get models down to 1 or 2 defense, and then that stat 5 is a whole lot scarier with, I put diesel engine on them, so they've got double positives to damage and onslaught, or just drag you through the pyro marker again. They can really kind of just put some salt in the wound that Karis is setting up for you.
Yep.
So this is going to be for both of you. Maeve just joined the chat. Maeve, it's good to see you. And her question is how often are you bringing the fire golem with Karis these days? So is the fire golem just automatically attached for you, Cole?
So that's actually so that when I'm building a Karis crew, the first decision I make is, am I bringing the fire golem? Because that kind of sets the priority for the rest of the crew, and that's almost entirely matchup based. Again, if I'm playing against Neverborn, I'm probably not bringing the fire golem, because if they decide to bring Iggy, he just has a really bad day. If anything that can easily shut down his burning with offensive condition removal, you got to be really careful.
Yeah.
Now, Burns did give her Deacon, who can help, but that's kind of a 6-7 stone tax on an already 10 stone model.
Yeah, you're chasing stones at that point. Yeah.
Right. And in this pool, just agnostic from the matchup, I probably don't, because what he's good at, he can't be as abusive in corner as he can in something like Wedge.
Yep.
But you really just kind of got to gauge your opponent and know the faction you're playing against and how many tools they have. Because if they brought something to end his burning, he's going to crumple. If they didn't, there's no chance he's dying.
Roman, do you agree with Cole, or do you have some other thoughts?
Almost word for word. Like, it comes down to matchup of did the crew that they declared, the keyword they declared, do they have a lot of condition removal? How likely is it that they're bringing more than one model with it? And where do I think that model's going on the board? Because if I know they're bringing just one, I know it's going straight for the fire golem, and I'm just going to snipe it out first.
Karis is going to murder it.
Exactly. Or I'll get cheeky sometimes and figure out exactly how far it can get, put the fire golem a quarter of an inch out of their range and go, cool, you're going to get burning from something, and I'm going to jump to you next turn.
Yeah.
Meet my fist.
The golem is a precision piece that is really easy to get, excuse the pun, get burned on playing him, because you really got to know your matchups.
I mean, the reality is, if he's not, and I don't like to say teched against, right? Because there's a lot of ways to deal with him, but if he can't handle the focus, right, especially if there's some tech involved there,
right.
But because he's such a bruiser, people don't realize that he is a finesse piece. So I don't disagree with that at all, Cole. I don't disagree with that at all. But I think, especially in gaining grounds too, we're seeing a lot more finesse, period, right? It's a lot harder to win now than just running down the middle of the board and killing first and
Right.
scheming later. That's still a strategy, but just the way that they built Gaining Grounds 2 is just not nearly as prevalent. All right, Mr. Roman, our newest Arcanist is Mr. Hoffman. And where is Mr. Hoffman the happiest?
So I had to think a lot about him too, because as he's the newest one, and I have, generally a problem with red cards. I haven't played him a ton, but looking at him and the little I have played him, I've enjoyed him in Break the Line.
Okay.
And a lot of that comes down to with the tricks they can do with the power tokens, his whole keyword can interact, move 2 inches, interact. So you're getting 2 throws. Plus, there's a lot of 2-inch engagement in there. And again, with the movement tricks they have that make them not actually as slow as they look, in flank, you can pretty easily get them to a marker, lock it down with your 2-inch engagement, and then spend the game beating the crap out of whoever is there trying to take it from them, and then start moving them.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. How about for you, Cole? First of all, have you gotten some reps in with Hoffman? Or are you similar to
So
Roman?
I've played maybe half a dozen games with him, but I feel like I have a really good understanding of his crew. Like it clicked for me very quickly, and
Interesting.
I've played against him, uh, not often, but against someone who was really good with him and showed me very quickly how evil you can be with him. So I've kind of took that horrible experience and moved forward with it on playing him.
That always
Um,
helps, honestly.
yeah, for sure. And I 100% agree. Break the Line is right where Hoffman wants to be. The the speed that his crew has that you don't see without seeing how the pieces work together, he's probably one of the faster crews in Arcanist, and that's really saying
That
something.
says something. Yeah.
Um, the whole crew can't move as quickly as something like Colette or Marcus, but you give 1 or 2 models a bunch of power tokens, Hoffman makes them fast, and then they can scoot themselves along. Like I can get a peacekeeper down your throat so fast you would not believe it. And the value in being able to interact with a break the line marker twice in a turn makes him just really, really good at this. And then the scheme pool, I mean, you've got Watchers and Hunters and Arachnid Swarms. They can go do Breakthrough. Detonate Charges isn't fantastic, but you probably are bringing a Steam Fitter, and they're kind of some cute little tech to make it happen. I would say he scores catch and release better than anyone in Arcanist
Interesting.
because you put Diesel Engine on something like a Hunter, and that is an incredibly difficult model to catch and kill. It's got a 3-inch push when it activates and a 4-inch push at the end of the turn. So you really don't have to telegraph it much. And good luck catching the thing with anything that can get through its armor to and kill it.
Right. Right.
Um,
All right. So Miss Colette, our last master. Where do you think she falls, Cole?
so this is one I have not played a lot of Colette. I've played her a bunch, but I don't feel like I've really unlocked her because she's very much a finesse piece. And then we had the errata to her that changed up a lot. So right as I was starting to feel comfortable, it changed what she did. But I think the symbols pool is where I would take her.
And what's the
Um,
thinking there?
she's fast. She has more don't mind me than almost anyone. So denying
That's
symbols
big.
against her is practically impossible. She's scoring 4 points for that unless you table her before that happens, which is possible.
Yep.
Um, bait and switch with her Presto Changeo, she's probably the most surefire to score it because there's scheme markers everywhere. It's a performer crew. They all have don't mind me. So getting the scheme marker down and then picking a model to say, hey, get over here where I need you, she's the best at it. If you're not playing 10 Thunders, good luck assassinating her because but I was thinking if you're playing Thunders, you have to be really careful as the Colette player because they can just turn everything she wants to do off, and you got to be a lot more careful.
Yep.
And then spread them out. I mean, again, it's performers. They're fast. They're schemy. That's their bread and butter.
Yep. Yep. All right, that's it. I think we've gotten all of the masters
Yeah, let's
picked
end
out.
the
We don't.
stream.
There's
Let's
nothing
go
else
home.
left. Roman, where's your girl going?
Everywhere is the short answer. As far as the top, putting her right and break the line. She's the reason that Hoffman doesn't get played more by me, because everywhere I'm like, maybe I'll try Hoffman, or
Or
Yeah.
or Colette. Again, her whole crew, like both of her henchmen and one of her enforcers, they have a free walk or movement.
mhm.
They just grab a line marker and go, nope, you don't get to do it, but I have, don't mind me. I'm moving it twice. Bye. Detonate charges, she can sleep through. She blinks and snaps her fingers, and detonate charges is done. Catch and release, again, she goes, oh, I have who I wanted next to you, but instead of them moving, you're getting presto changeoed away. Probably to where I have detonate charges set up for you.
Right.
Outflank, on the one hand, it's a little bit trickier, especially on a flank, but this would be one where I would probably take something really cheap, or even probably not worth it to do the Soulstone Miner tricks with the way they've been changed. But like, this might be one where I would actually spend the 6 stones for 2 Arachnid Swarms, because I
Wow.
don't think anybody else is going to the corners.
Right.
You might do that. Again, research mission, she does have to put a little bit of work into, because she needs Carlos to drop a pyre, essentially. But it's not that bad. There's enough options there that she can do what she wants, and your opponent doesn't know what you're doing until you've done it.
Right. All of those are pretty evenly good, with the exception maybe outflank, because you really have to commit to that in a diagonal deployment early. You're not bluffing that because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other 4, I mean, you could take any of those and feel good about it. So your opponent's not going to know what you're doing until it's too late to deny it.
So we have now put every master in the pool that we think they are best at. So now we've really got an interesting overlay on the entire faction. And it's definitely leaning to the left side a little bit, right? We've got 5 masters in each of the symbols and turf wars. We've only got 3 masters that ended up in the ley lines and break the line. So now, just visually looking at that, Cole, your picks combined with Roman's picks, do you have any overarching thoughts as far as for the faction and why we see it tilting to the left here?
I think some of it is so for Break the Line, for example, Colette and Hoffman are kind of indisputably the best at it, and other people are just better at other things. So like
Right.
that's one where they're like, yeah, we picked the best for the master, but I don't think it would be a much different, because they're so good at that, it kind of warps what you're realistically going to pick. Like, I really like Karis and Break the Line, but that's my comfort level with Karis. Objectively, Hoffman and Colette are just better at it.
Gotcha.
And I think part of it is the strategies as well, because symbols in turf war aren't as AP intensive as Break the Line can be if you're really fighting over it. And ley lines is such kind of a warping one where you're basically guaranteed 3 points unless your opponent has some real tricky stuff to knock you off it for 2 consecutive turns. So the strat almost becomes a non-factor, and it's really just the scheme pool that you're picking.
Right. Yep. Yep. How about you, Roman? Do you have any thoughts as far as, the spread? Now, you ended up going 2-2-2, right? But at the same time, you were agreeing with Cole's picks, right? So at no point did you think Cole was picking out of left field, nor did Cole think, with you. There was a lot of close calls in there. Does this say anything about the faction?
I think it kind of roundabout ways comes back to the fact that we were talking a little bit beforehand of a lot of these. I realized doing this, I don't necessarily pick the keyword based on the strat, because there are versatile models I will easily bring into any keyword that will get the strat done for me, whether it's the rider or a swarm with diesel engine, or 2 sometimes. That in Break the Line. Yeah. Two diesel engine swarms in Break the Line, any keyword, you got it. It's hard to deal with by your opponent. And that lets you kind of go, okay, what pool what schemes are the best for your keyword and let you really focus on that more. In this case, I was trying to kind of ignore the versatiles as much as I could,
Yeah.
which ended up getting me to 2, 2, 2, and 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last thing I always like to do is then let's do what I said we weren't going to do, right? Let's pick a winner here. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately for Cole, it's super easy. We've got
Yeah.
Hoffman and Karras, right? But let's take a look at Roman's pick. So Roman, for the ley lines pool, you can only take one. Is it going to be Raspy or is it going to be Mayfang?
Me personally, I'm taking Raspy because I am more comfortable with her and know more of her limits. Mayfang is, I think, ultimately better than a lot of people think she is, but like you said at the beginning, the faction is so well balanced that anybody below a certain line just looks comparatively bad.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily the case, but she has more counterplay.
Yep.
Right.
Well, and your familiarity is a big deal, Roman. I mean, that's I've made that argument since day one. Is that the biggest factor is what are you the most comfortable with? And Cole made my argument for me. And when he was talking about Karras, I mean, it. You've heard me say the phrase several times on the podcast. When you stop playing your crew and you start playing Malifaux, you're going to win the game. But if you're still just playing your crew, you're going to lose.
And when you're talking from a competitive standpoint too, the fatigue on round 3 of a tournament matters.
Yep.
And I know that I can be wiped out with Concrud and still blow someone out with Karras. I don't know if I can do that with Hoffman, even if I'm comfortable when I'm fresh on a Tuesday night. I don't know if I can see all the pieces fit together when it's round 3 and I'm playing the top table.
Exactly. And I should specify, like, Raspy has plenty of counterplay against her too. I just know what it is and what to see where it's coming from across the table better. So that plays into it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yanni, thanks for the follow. All right. Roman, are we taking Hoffman or are we taking Colette? I think I know the answer.
How much money do you have riding on this? It's Colette all day.
Yeah.
Again, me personally, I know her the best out of anything, basically. I'll play her into everything. I'll play her into Turf War. I don't even really like her in Turf War, but I'll play her into that too. But yeah, exactly. It just doesn't look like a Colette crew. It looks like Colette hiring a lot of versatiles.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a fan of. But yeah, her all day.
All right, so let's look at the symbols pool. So Cole, you have 3 masters here. You've got Sandeep, you've got Raspy, and you've got Colette. Who wins out?
So I knew you were going to ask this, so I thought about this one a lot. For me, ultimately, it's Sandeep, just because I'm an Arcanist. I have a ton of reps with Sandeep under my belt. I've played him a lot, and I'm the same way. I know what he can do. I know how people are going to play against him. Raspy, if it's the right board, maybe I'll play Raspy, but I really got to see the board to decide that. And from a competitive standpoint, Raspy has a lot more chinks in her armor than Sandeep does. And then Colette is amazing. I'm sure I could play her just fine, but I know Sandeep better, and I know how to score this pool with him.
All right. How about for you, Roman? Are you taking Sandeep or are you taking Tony?
While Cole is over there with his student ID, I'm going to hold on to my union card, and we're going to go with Tony. In part, again, because of familiarity, but also ultimately, Sandeep, for as versatile and good as he is, I find he's just a bit too much of a Rube Goldberg machine for me to comfortably play quickly. Whereas Tony, there's a couple gears and wheels there, but ultimately it's come to Tony, get beat up, and she will get points, is what it boils down to.
All right.
Yeah, and I just have enough Sandeep games that I don't feel that I'm slowing the game down playing him, but I have played an ungodly amount of Sandeep. Like, I've played a lot of Karras, but
that's really funny. All right, so Roman, Marcus and Karras for Turf War, who wins out?
That's a tough one.
There is a right answer here.
I don't know, man. You didn't pick Colette for symbols. I don't know if I can make that answer. I do ultimately think it's Karras. Karras is the right answer here, despite the quip. Again, because fewer cogs and wheels that could go wrong compared to
Mhm.
Marcus's.
She's very
Uh,
consistent.
Yes, she's super consistent, no matter without sacrificing her versatility. Like you can make Marcus's crew do a lot more than just this turf pool, and you can make them do a bunch of different things in this turf pool. But to do so, you're going to be relying more on lines of sight for his uh, ability to throw out more upgrades. You're
Yep.
going to be making sure that you're getting the trigger to hand out too when you need it. There's a lot more places where that can break down that you have to then use your hand to deal with. Whereas Karis, you're hitting a couple target numbers, you're getting the right positioning, and that's the same positioning you're looking for and target numbers you're hitting in any other game.
Right. And most of her crew's on positive flips most of the time, so it really smooths out some of the luck variants, which
Interesting.
can be
Yep.
important.
Yep. Very, very good point. All right. So out of curiosity, Cole, between Tony, May, and Marcus, who do you think is best for Turf War?
So for me, it's hands down Ironsides, mostly because of familiarity. I've played quite a bit of Ironsides. I've played, I think, one game of Mei Fang, and maybe probably less than 10 with Marcus, and he just never really quite clicks for me. It's not a play style that I've made work for me in a way that I enjoy playing. I'm really excited to play his title because I think that looks like more my speed. Um, but I rate May and Marcus kind of in the I'm glad they exist, but I'm probably not playing them much. Whereas Tony's someone that if the pool's right for her, I'm happy to play her.
So this paints a little bit of a more interesting picture in some ways, doesn't it? Right. So we see a good variety. Who did we only left out Mei Fang, right? Everybody else end up in play here. 1, 2, 3,
Yep.
4, 5. Who did we Marcus didn't make
Marcus
it.
is out. Marcus
Yep.
May.
And Marcus and May didn't. Karis got 2 picks. And we see Tony with 2 picks, which I think is also very interesting as well. Gentlemen, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed this. I thought the level of analysis was great. Hopefully it gives everybody listening and watching an idea. If you are an Arcanist, I'm sorry, but hopefully this was helpful. And if you're not an Arcanist, another thing I tell people is if you want to learn how to play against something, listen to their stuff on Third Floor Wars. So listen to the deep dives, list all of that. Thanks for the cheer, Doug. Let's do some quick plugs. I'll be last. Roman, you go first. What do you want to plug?
Well, I'm contractually obligated to mention Steam Powered Scoundrels, but that shouldn't stop anybody from listening to us because we're hilarious. And even, especially really the ones that I'm not on, because the shipisodes are quickly becoming some of everybody's favorite stuff. Although I do intend on having a Best Laid Plans coming out here soon.
Cole, do you have any plugs or any shout outs you want to give?
So I don't really do any podcasts normally. I'd like to do more of them. This was a really fun time. I'm going to plug the shop I play at. The Dragon's Roost in Toledo is not only the best shop in town, but it's the best coffee house in town. So if you're ever in Toledo, hit me up for a game and check out a really unique and cool shop.
That's fantastic. All right, guys, you know the plugs here, right? We're on Twitch, we're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that noise. If you're not listening to Tabletop Talk, give us a listen. There's a ton of Malifaux content on there. And keep track of the streaming schedule. So we're going to be getting all of the masters or all of the factions covered. We're going to do a pool party for each, and then we'll come back and do title pool parties as well. So you have a lot to look forward to. If you like role-playing games, we've got a ton of role-playing games coming through as well. For everybody in the chat, the conversation was great. I saw a bunch of subs. I saw a bunch of likes and some bits and stuff like that. That's very, very much appreciated. Last but not least, I got a Patreon. All right. Roman, thanks, buddy.
Anytime, Craig. Have a good one.
Cole, this is not the last time you'll be on the show, man. This was fantastic.
Glad to hear it.
All right. And for those of you watching, I appreciate you sticking around. Take care.